The massive alien ship hung in the sky above New York, its smooth silver surface reflecting the morning sunlight. Inside the ship, High Diplomat Mark adjusted his environmental suit for the third time, his four hands trembling slightly as he read the scanner readings again. "This cannot be correct," he muttered, his large eyes blinking rapidly. "The readings show this is a Class 12 death world. The gravity alone should make advanced life impossible, yet our scans show massive cities and artificial structures." His assistant, Ray, looked equally confused. "Sir, perhaps our instruments are malfunctioning. The atmospheric toxin levels are beyond survivable limits. The oxygen content alone would be lethal to most species." The diplomatic team had chosen human-friendly names for this mission, hoping to ease communication. But now, as they prepared to make first contact, they wondered if they would survive long enough to use them. "We must proceed," Mark declared. "The Council requires us to investigate all spacefaring civilizations. Activate the protection fields at maximum power." The landing shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its shield straining against what the aliens considered lethal conditions. They landed in the designated area, Central Park, where human officials waited to greet them. As the shuttle door opened, Mark's suit sensors screamed warnings. The gravity pulled at his body like a dying star, and the air, even filtered through his suit, burned his lungs with its corrosive oxygen content. How could anything live here? Then he saw them. The humans stood casually in the open air, wearing nothing but light fabric coverings they called suits. No protection against the crushing gravity. No breathing apparatus. No radiation shields. Just bare skin exposed to the deadly world around them. Ambassador Tom Wells stepped forward, a friendly smile on his face. "Welcome to Earth," he said, extending his hand in greeting. "We hope your journey was comfortable." Mark stared in amazement as his translator processed the words. These creatures had evolved in these conditions. He reached out cautiously with one of his four hands, marveling at how the human showed no signs of strain in the brutal gravity. The meeting moved to a nearby building, where the human delegation had thoughtfully prepared refreshments. Mark watched in horror as Ambassador Wells casually poured a dark liquid into small cups. "Would you like some coffee?" Wells offered. "It's a traditional Earth beverage." Mark's toxin sensors nearly shorted out. The liquid registered as a deadly poison, containing multiple stimulant compounds that should kill any reasonable life form. To his shock, Wells lifted the cup and drank it without hesitation. "Is everything all right?" Wells asked, noticing the alien's distress. "We can provide different refreshments if you prefer." Before Mark could respond, alarm sirens began blaring throughout the building. A human aide rushed into the room, face serious but composed. "Ambassador, we have multiple unidentified ships entering the atmosphere. They're not responding to hails, and their weapon systems are active." Mark's heart sank. He recognized the ship configurations appearing on the human screens. "Ravagers," he whispered. "The most feared pirates in the galaxy. We must evacuate immediately." But the humans didn't panic. They didn't run. Ambassador Wells calmly set down his coffee cup and pressed a button on his desk. "General Roberts, implement Defense Protocol Alpha," he said firmly. "And please ensure our guests are protected." Mark watched in disbelief as the humans sprang into action. Instead of seeking shelter from the approaching threat, they moved with purpose and determination. Military vehicles appeared on the streets below, and the sound of fighter jets filled the air. These humans, these creatures who could survive crushing gravity, drink poison for pleasure, and breathe corrosive air, were preparing to fight instead of flee. For the first time in his long diplomatic career, Mark felt something new. Hope. Perhaps these Deathworlders were exactly what the galaxy needed. As the first explosions lit up the sky above New York, Mark realized that the Ravagers had made a terrible mistake. They had no idea what they were about to face. The Ravager ships filled the sky above New York, their black hulls blocking out the sun. Inside the diplomatic building, Mark and his alien team huddled behind their failing shield generators, their environmental suits beeping warnings about the crushing Earth gravity. "Our shields cannot withstand their weapons," Ray cried out, his large eyes wide with fear. "We must escape." But Ambassador Wells remained oddly calm. He stood at the window, that deadly coffee still in his hand, watching the chaos unfold. A blast rocked the building, and while the alien stumbled, the human didn't even spill his drink. "Captain Reed," Wells spoke into his communication device, "you have permission to engage." The aliens heard a sound that made their hearts race, the roar of primitive combustion engines. Looking out the window, they saw human aircraft rising from hidden bunkers throughout the city. These weren't the sleek, shielded ships used by most species. These were raw, brutal machines of metal and fire. "Those pilots," Mark asked, checking his readings. "The G-forces they're pulling would kill any normal species." Captain Lisa Reed's voice crackled over the building's speakers. "This is Eagle Squadron. Let's show these pirates what happens when you mess with Earth." The human fighters engaged the Ravager ships with shocking violence. While alien pilots typically relied on computer assistance and artificial gravity, the humans flew their craft like extensions of their own bodies. They pulled maneuvers that should have turned their pilots to paste, diving through gaps in the Ravager formation that seemed impossibly small. "Impossible," Ray whispered, watching a human pilot survive a turn that registered at 9 times Earth's already crushing gravity. Their bodies should have collapsed. On the ground, more humans sprang into action. Mark watched in disbelief as human soldiers ran, carrying heavy weapons in Earth's gravity. They moved with incredible speed and precision, their bodies adapting instantly to the changing battlefield conditions. A Ravager ship crashed into the river, and Mark expected the human forces to retreat from the steam and debris. Instead, human rescue boats rushed toward the wreck. The aliens watched in shock as human divers jumped into the water. A substance that their scans showed was full of dissolved oxygen, a corrosive nightmare that would burn most species. "Are they trying to save the Ravagers?" Ray asked in disbelief. "Of course," Wells replied, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Enemy or not, we don't leave people to die." The battle continued above, but now the Ravagers were retreating. Their ships, designed to terrorize normal worlds, found themselves outmatched by creatures who treated lethal environments as minor inconveniences. Captain Reed's squadron had lost no pilots, while the Ravagers had lost 6 ships. "Pull back." The Ravager commander's transmission echoed across all frequencies. "This world is protected. I repeat, this death world is protected." As the black ships folded into space, Mark turned to Ambassador Wells with new understanding. "Your people," he said carefully, "you're not just surviving on this death world. You've mastered it." Wells smiled, finally putting down his coffee cup. "Earth has taught us many lessons. High gravity made us strong. Oxygen makes us enduring. Predators made us cunning. Everything that makes our world deadly to you has helped make us who we are." Outside, the human soldiers were already helping clean up the debris, working tirelessly in conditions that the aliens could barely survive even with their advanced technology. Captain Reed landed her fighter and walked into the building, her flight suit drenched in sweat, but a smile on her face. "Sorry about the mess, Ambassador," she said casually, "but I think our visitors got the message." Mark looked at his readings one more time, then turned off his scanner. Some things, he realized, couldn't be measured by machines. The true nature of humans went far beyond their deadly world. It was their spirit that made them truly remarkable. The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their environmental bubbles, watching the video footage from Earth for the 10th time. They watched humans lifting weights in what they considered crushing gravity, eating foods that would kill most species, and worst of all, participating in something called extreme sports. "They jump out of flying machines for fun?" Counselor Ben asked, his tentacles curling in distress. "Without anti-gravity fields. That's called skydiving." Mark explained, standing proudly before the council. After his experience on Earth, he had become humanity's strongest advocate. And yes, they consider it entertainment. Yesterday, I watched humans compete in something called a hot pepper eating contest. They willingly consumed capsaicin, a chemical weapon, for prizes. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. On the main screen, footage showed human athletes running something called a marathon, voluntarily running 42 kilometers in Earth's gravity without any mechanical assistance. But surely, council leader Dan spoke, using his chosen human name. Surely they must have some weaknesses. Their technology seems primitive compared to ours. Mark clicked to the next video. Footage from the Ravager attack on New York. The council watched in stunned silence as human pilots performed maneuvers that should have been fatal, as human soldiers lifted debris that would crush most species, as human divers swam through oxygen-rich water that would dissolve standard environmental suits. Their technology isn't primitive, Mark explained. It's adapted to their incredible physical capabilities. They don't need anti-gravity because they're adapted to high gravity. They don't need atmospheric filters because they breathe corrosive oxygen naturally. And their combat capabilities. He paused for effect. Well, you saw what happened to the Ravagers. In the back of the chamber, military advisors watched with growing interest. One of them, General Pat, leaned forward. Are you suggesting we accept these Deathworlders into the council? They could be dangerous. They are dangerous, Mark agreed. But they're also compassionate. During the attack, they tried to rescue the crashed Ravager pilots, the same pirates who were trying to kill them. Their strength is matched by their humanity, if you'll pardon the expression. On the screen, new footage played. Humans practicing something called basketball. Their bodies leaping incredible heights in Earth's gravity. Another clip showed them diving into frozen water through holes in ice. Again, apparently for fun. What's that? A council member pointed to a new scene. Ah, Mark said. That's called a spicy wing challenge. Those humans are competing to eat increasingly toxic, spicy foods. The winner gets their picture on a wall. The council chamber fell silent again. Finally, council leader Dan spoke. We've never admitted a death world species before. The strongest world previously considered was Class 5. Earth is Class 12. Perhaps, Mark suggested, that's exactly why we need them. The Ravagers had never been defeated before they met humans. Imagine what humanity could teach us about resilience, about adapting, about thriving in conditions we consider impossible. The council buzzed with discussion. On the screen, more footage played. Humans rock climbing without safety gear, diving to ocean depths that would crush most species, and fighting fires in protective gear that seemed impossibly thin to alien eyes. Finally, council leader Dan raised his hand for silence. We will vote. Should Earth be classified as a warrior world and admitted to the Galactic Council? The vote was unanimous. As soon as it was done, Mark sent the message to Earth. In New York, Ambassador Wells received the news with his usual calm smile, sipping his coffee, an act that still made alien observers flinch. Welcome to the galaxy, the message read. Please try not to accidentally kill anyone during the celebration. Wells chuckled and began drafting his response. He would need to warn the council about something humans called champagne before the welcome ceremony. The galaxy, he thought, had no idea what it was in for. 3 months after Earth joined the Galactic Council, emergency alarms blared through the council chambers. The peaceful agricultural world of Green Haven was under attack. The massive screens showed Ravager ships darkening the skies above Green Haven's vast wheat fields. They're back, Council Leader Dan announced grimly. And this time, they'd brought their entire fleet. The Council's military commanders reported their ships were already moving to help, but they would take hours to arrive. Green Haven's defenses were failing. The peaceful farmers had no chance against the battle-hardened Ravagers. In the Earth Embassy section, Ambassador Wells calmly set down his coffee cup. an action that still made nearby aliens nervous. "Earth can have troops on the ground in 30 minutes, he said. The council chamber erupted in chaos. "Impossible," General Pat declared. "Even our fastest ships need at least 2 hours to reach Greenhaven." Wells smiled. "We've been busy since joining the council. Our engineers have been modifying your transport technology to handle human requirements." On the screen, Greenhaven's capital city burned. The Ravagers had landed ground troops, their black armor gleaming as they rounded up helpless farmers. They had chosen this target carefully, a peaceful world with rich resources and no military. "What exactly do you mean by human requirements?" Council Leader Dan asked. "Your ships are designed for comfort and safety," Wells explained. "Ours are designed for speed and durability. We removed the artificial gravity, stripped out the atmospheric controls, and doubled the engine power. The ships aren't pretty, but they're fast." The council watched in shock as dozens of Earth ships emerged from hyperspace near Greenhaven. They were ugly, brutal-looking vessels that seemed to be more engine than ship. The Ravagers, caught by surprise, scattered in confusion. "Those ships are pulling 7Gs in their turns," an alien technician shouted. "The crews should be dead. Humans can handle it," Wells said proudly. "We're sending in the first Earth Rapid Response Force." They'd been training for exactly this scenario. The council's screen showed human drop pods launching from the ships. Unlike the gentle descent pods used by other species, these streaked through the atmosphere like meteors, hitting the ground with bone-crushing force. When they opened, humans in light combat armor jumped out, already running and fighting in Greenhaven's gravity, which, to them, felt like floating. "By the stars," Mark whispered, watching the feeds. "They're not even using powered armor." The Ravager ground forces, used to terrorizing helpless civilians, found themselves facing creatures who could outrun their vehicles, tear through their armor with handheld weapons, and shrug off hits that would kill most species. The humans moved with terrifying speed and strength, their bodies adapted to conditions far harsher than anything on Greenhaven. "They're scaling the buildings," Ray pointed at one screen, "without climbing gear." Indeed, human soldiers were running up the sides of buildings, using their natural strength and Earth-evolved muscles to do what other species needed anti-gravity units to accomplish. They dropped onto Ravager positions from above, their bodies easily absorbing impacts that would shatter most aliens' bones. In just 20 minutes, the ground battle was over. The remaining Ravagers fled to their ships, only to find Earth's vessels waiting. The brutal space battle that followed showed the galaxy exactly why you don't anger Deathworlders. As the last Ravager ship fled or surrendered, Council Leader Dan turned to Ambassador Wells. "How many casualties did your forces suffer?" Wells checked his data pad. 2 twisted ankles and 1 broken finger. Also, several soldiers are complaining that Greenhaven's coffee is too weak. The council chamber was silent. Finally, General Pat spoke. "I believe we need to reconsider our entire military doctrine. Earth's methods may seem extreme, but they're clearly effective." Wells nodded, reaching for his coffee cup. "We're happy to help. Just remember, what you call extreme, we call Tuesday morning training." Commander James Stone stood before the gathered alien troops in the massive training hall of the newly established Joint Defense Force headquarters. The aliens sat in their environmental suits, still uncomfortable with Earth's atmosphere despite the room being adjusted to their needs. "Today," Stone announced, "we're going to show you how humans fight. Not with fancy technology, but with our natural abilities." The alien soldiers watched nervously as Stone picked up what looked like a primitive projectile weapon. Their sensors indicated it had no power source, no anti-gravity system, not even basic target tracking. "Sir," an alien lieutenant named Tim raised his hand. "Our data shows that weapon is obsolete. It doesn't even have an energy core." Stone smiled. "Watch closely." He turned to a target range and fired rapidly, his muscles compensating for the recoil that would have knocked most aliens off their feet. Every shot hit dead center. No targeting computer, someone asked in disbelief. Just eyes, hands, and a lifetime of Earth's gravity making us strong, Stone replied. Now, who wants to try? The next few hours demonstrated exactly why humans had become the galaxy's most feared warriors. Stone's team showed the aliens how to fight without relying on technology. They taught them to use their bodies' natural strengths, to think creatively, to adapt to changing conditions. In one exercise, a human surgeon named Bill carried an alien soldier through an obstacle course, in full gravity, to show how to rescue injured comrades without powered armor. The aliens watched in amazement as Bill climbed walls, jumped gaps, and waded through water that would have dissolved their environmental suits. Impossible, muttered an alien captain watching the display. Their muscles shouldn't be that strong. That's nothing, Stone said. Wait until you see our underwater training. The alien troops learned that humans could hold their breath for minutes at a time, could survive temperature extremes that would kill most species, and could keep fighting even when injured. One demonstration showed a human medic treating a wound while running. Actually running across the training field. But when do we learn to use the advanced weapons? Tim asked. Stone picked up a simple metal bar. This is advanced. It's a crowbar. It never runs out of power, never needs calibration, and can solve a surprising number of problems. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best. As if to prove his point, alarms suddenly blared through the facility. A Ravager scout ship had been detected near the base. The alien troops rushed to their expensive powered armor and energy weapons. Stone simply grabbed his rifle and the crowbar. The Ravagers had landed a small strike team, hoping to gather intelligence on the new human-led forces. What they found instead was a nightmare. Human troops moved through the forest without making a sound, their Earth-evolved bodies perfectly adapted to stalking prey. They didn't need motion sensors or heat detectors. They had instincts honed by millions of years of evolution on a death world. The alien troops watched in awe as their human instructors took down the Ravager team in less than 5 minutes. Stone's crowbar proved particularly effective at removing the power cells from Ravager armor, leaving the pirates trapped in their own suits. That's the problem with relying too much on technology, Stone told the captured Ravagers. It can be turned against you, but you can't turn off gravity. You can't disable muscles. You can't hack instincts. Back in the training hall, the alien troops looked at their own equipment with new eyes. One by one, they began removing pieces of powered armor, trying to move naturally like their human instructors. Good, Stone nodded approvingly. Now you're learning. Remember, every piece of technology can fail. But if you train your body, train your mind, you'll always have weapons that work. He picked up his crowbar again, smiling. Now who's ready for the advanced class? Today we're learning about something humans call parkour. The aliens looked nervous, but they stayed. They had seen enough to know that while human methods seemed primitive, they were devastatingly effective. Perhaps these Deathworlders knew something about survival after all. The Galactic Defense Force's newest training facility on Mars buzzed with activity. 6 months had passed since humans began sharing their combat techniques, and the changes were remarkable. Alien soldiers who once relied entirely on powered armor now moved with natural grace, their bodies growing stronger through what humans called exercise. General Pat stood beside Ambassador Wells, watching the training through the facility's reinforced windows. Below them, aliens from a dozen worlds practiced human-style combat moves in Mars' reduced gravity. I still can't believe how much has changed, Pat said, his tentacles waving in excitement. Our troops can now fight even when their power armor fails. Some can even drink coffee. Well, very weak coffee. Wells smiled, sipping his own extra-strong blend. Speaking of changes, I hear the Ravagers tried to attack another farming world yesterday. Tried is the key word, Pat replied proudly. They weren't expecting our troops to keep fighting after they used EMP weapons to disable our technology. The looks on their faces when our soldiers just took off their powered armor and kept coming. The scene below demonstrated just how far things had come. An alien trainee named Tim, who once couldn't walk in normal gravity, was now doing pull-ups. Another group practiced human-style hand-to-hand combat, their bodies adapting to move without mechanical assistance. "Look there," Wells pointed to a corner of the training yard. A team of alien soldiers was practicing with simple metal tools, crowbars, hammers, and other basic implements that humans had used as tools and weapons for thousands of years. Commander Stone's influence. Pat nodded. He keeps telling everyone that the best weapon is the one that can't break down. Yesterday, one of our troops took down a Ravager tank with just a rock and good aim. The facility shook slightly as a transport ship landed outside. More alien troops arrived for training, their environmental suits much lighter than before. Many species were slowly adapting to higher oxygen levels and stronger gravity, their bodies changing through what humans called conditioning. "The Ravagers are getting desperate," Wells noted, reading a report on his tablet. "Their usual tactics don't work anymore. EMP weapons, atmospheric poison, gravity attacks. None of their old tricks help when our troops can fight like humans." In the medical wing, alien doctors studied human biology, amazed by the natural healing abilities that humans took for granted. They learned about the human concept of working through the pain and walking it off, ideas that seemed insane at first but proved surprisingly effective. "Did you see the latest battle footage?" Pat asked excitedly. "A squad of our troops got trapped behind enemy lines. In the past, they would have surrendered. Instead, they did something called improvising, used parts from their broken vehicles to build weapons. They held out for 3 days until rescue arrived." Wells nodded proudly. "Humans call that thinking on your feet, though I suppose for some species it would be thinking on your tentacles." The training yard erupted in cheers as Tim completed his 100th pull-up, a feat impossible for his species just months ago. Commander Stone stood nearby, that famous crowbar still hanging from his belt, nodding in approval. "The Ravagers don't stand a chance anymore," Pat said confidently. "Not against troops who can fight like humans. Last week, they tried to use their gravity weapons against one of our patrols. The patrol leader just laughed and said it felt like home." "That would be Major Bill," Wells chuckled. "He's from Earth's high-gravity regions. To him, the Ravagers' worst weapons feel like a light workout." As they watched, a new group of trainees arrived for their first day. They looked nervous, especially when they saw the obstacle course, but their eyes showed determination. They had seen the videos of human troops in action. They had watched their comrades transform from technology-dependent soldiers into capable warriors. "You know what the best part is?" Pat asked, his voice full of pride. "We're not just copying humans anymore. We're adapting their methods to our own unique abilities. Some species can see in the dark, others can sense electromagnetic fields. Combined with human training, the galaxy will never be the same." Wells finished, raising his coffee cup in a toast. "And the Ravagers are about to learn just how much things have changed." 1 year after Earth joined the Galactic Council, the Great Hall looked very different. Many alien representatives had abandoned their environmental bubbles, having adapted to Earth-normal conditions through careful training. Some even drank coffee, though most stuck to what humans call the ultralight blend. At the main podium, Council Leader Dan stood with Ambassador Wells, watching the latest graduation ceremony of the Joint Defense Force. On the massive screens, troops from 50 different species demonstrated their new capabilities. They ran obstacle courses in high gravity, fought without powered armor, and even practiced Earth sports. "Remember when everyone thought humans were primitive because they didn't use anti-gravity?" Dan asked, chuckling. "Now half the galaxy's military trains in Earth gravity by choice." Wells nodded, hiding a smile as he watched an alien sergeant deadlift what would once have been considered an impossible weight. "They're not just copying us anymore. They're finding their own strength." The ceremony paused as emergency lights flashed. A massive ship had appeared in orbit, the Ravager flagship. But instead of panic, The council chamber remained calm. On the main screen, the Ravager Supreme Commander's face appeared. "We," the alien pirate leader paused, clearly struggling with the words. "We wish to discuss terms of surrender." The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Ravagers, who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, were giving up. Wells stepped forward, coffee cup in hand. "And why should we trust you?" he asked calmly. The Ravager commander's many eyes blinked rapidly. "Because we cannot win. Our weapons are useless against your troops. Our gravity attacks make them stronger. Our poisons don't affect them. And now," he shuddered, "now the other species are becoming like you." On another screen, Commander Stone's training facility showed alien troops practicing something new. A combination of human techniques with their own natural abilities. Species with 4 arms developed their own fighting styles. Those who could see in darkness created new stealth tactics. One group had even started using their tentacles to handle multiple human-style weapons at once. Last week, the Ravager continued, "We attacked a farming world. We expected easy prey. Instead, the farmers picked up primitive tools and fought back. They said humans taught them something called improvising. One of them defeated our best warrior with something called a garden hoe." Wells set down his coffee cup. "And what do you offer in surrender?" "Knowledge," the Ravager replied. "We too come from a higher gravity world. Not as extreme as Earth, but stronger than most. Perhaps we could learn from each other." The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Wells turned to Council Leader Dan, who nodded. "Very well," Wells announced. "Your surrender is accepted. Commander Stone will expect your first group of trainees next week. I suggest you start with basic physical conditioning." As the Ravager commander's image faded, cheers filled the chamber. On the training grounds below, aliens and humans celebrated together. Some brave souls even tried Earth's spicy foods, though the medical bay stood ready just in case. "A year ago," Dan mused, "we thought admitting Earth to the Council was a dangerous mistake. Now look, the galaxy's greatest pirates have surrendered, dozens of species have grown stronger, and we've discovered that what we thought were weaknesses were actually strengths waiting to be developed." Wells watched as Tim, now an instructor himself, taught a group of new recruits. The alien who once couldn't walk in Earth gravity was demonstrating advanced climbing techniques. Nearby, some former Ravager scouts learned basic survival skills from Bill, who still enjoyed showing off by carrying alien equipment without powered assistance. "That's the real lesson Earth brought to the galaxy," Wells said. "Not just our strength or our technology, but our drive to improve, to adapt, to overcome challenges instead of avoiding them." He picked up his coffee cup again, noticing with pride that several council members now had their own. The age of hiding behind technology is over. The age of reaching our true potential has begun. Above them, Earth's sun shone bright and strong, its deadly radiation a reminder of the harsh conditions that had forged humanity. But now those same conditions were helping forge a stronger galaxy, one push-up, one challenge, and one cup of coffee at a time.